Hey there YouTube lovers, my name is BB8 and today I am going to do my first game review of 2025 being Mario and Luigi Brothership. When the review embargo for this game was lifted, I was surprised that IGN ended up giving it a 5 out of 10, considering that their scores in 2024 haven't aligned with the public opinion. I was definitely interested to see how a Mario and Luigi game would work without Alpha Dream, since Alpha Dream shut down after the remake of Bowser's Inside Story, and I was skeptical only because it's been 9 years since the weakest of the Mario and Luigi games, being Paper Jam, came out. But despite the 5 out of 10 score that IGN handed out, I picked up the game anyway and gave it a play. And what did I think about it? Is this the first Mario and Luigi game to make it to Certified Gold? Or is Brothership just a game that should have just been left unplugged? You're about to find out. So, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? For the gameplay, Mario and Luigi Brothership's combat system still stays true to the previous installments, since the Bros attacks do return from previous games, which make battles against enemies more strategic and entertaining to watch. With not just new Bros attacks, but Bros attacks returning from past installments, such as the Jump Helmet and Yoo-Hoo Cannon from Bowser's Inside Story, and Bomb Derby returning from Dream Team. And while the Bros attacks do provide some fun combat sequences, the only change I didn't like about the Bros attacks this time around is that they were restricted to each of the brothers, similar to Superstar Saga, which was one of my flaws with it. Like, Mario can't use the Jump Helmet or Yoo-Hoo Cannon, while Luigi can't use Hatch Me If You Can or Bomb Derby. Brothership's combat system does introduce the Battle Plug system, which each Battle Plug does have their own effect on the battle, such as automatically using an item such as a mushroom, syrup, or candy, as well as Battle Plugs which do affect the damage, such as Surprise Iron Ball and Kaboom Attack. The limited use until it's fully charged does add strategy to the battles, unlike Paper Mario Sticker Star and Color Splash, which are resource based. However, the combat system is not entirely perfect, since there was a major change with the controls compared to past games, since past games used A for Mario and B for Luigi, which gave the Mario and Luigi games a sense of identity when it came to their control scheme. But here in Brothership, they changed the controls to assign A to both Mario and Luigi instead, which is a change I didn't really like. The Ship Shape Hub is a unique layer added into the game, since it does evolve as the story progresses, and while this wasn't included in past Mario and Luigi games, Ship Shape Island is a welcome addition to Mario and Luigi Brothership. Moving on from the combat system and talking about the rhythm minigames towards the end of the game, which honestly felt more like a chore than fun, only because if a single mistake is made when playing the rhythm minigame, it forces a complete restart, which does make the rhythm minigame more frustrating to play. I mean, the pizza minigame was fun though, but the rhythm minigame, I just feel like there is quite a bit I would change about the rhythm minigame to make it a bit better. And what doesn't help with the gameplay area is that the gameplay does have pacing issues to when the gameplay mechanics are introduced, since I feel like mechanics were introduced at random points in the game, which makes the game feel a bit slow, such as the traversal system on Ship Shape Island within the first few hours feels slow because the speed boost, which allows you to reach islands quicker, does not unlock until 5 hours into the game. And I feel like these design choices are questionable despite the fun combat system we have to work with. For the graphics and the performance, visually, Brothership does have a solid art style to work with, since it does use a cel-shaded and cartoony art style, which does complement the character animations in past games as well. And speaking of character animations, I think the character animations, such as the character expressions and the bros attacks, are very well done, which does add personality to each of the moves. The island designs are decent, since they don't follow the generic biome structure used in Paper Mario Sticker Star, with each of the islands having their own unique puzzles to solve as well. My favourite island in Brothership has to be Heat Freeze Island, despite reminding me a lot of Hailfire Peaks from Banjo-Tooie, because I feel like it's the most unique of the islands in the game. The reason that Heat Freeze stands out is the unique designs of the Concordians from these islands, which I feel like other islands didn't quite get there when designing the Concordians. But outside of Heat Freeze, I think the environments like Twisty Island are really creative, even though some areas feel underutilized throughout the game. Unfortunately, the performance does not reach the heights of the visuals, since the frame rate does take noticeable dips during heavy scenes, such as some action scenes, especially when the islands connect to shipshape, which these moments do have a slight effect on the overall experience, but not a huge effect. And this definitely proves why it's time for the Switch 2 to release. For the characters, Mario and Luigi still stand out as enjoyable protagonists with an entertaining dynamic, with Snoutlet, a new ally who joins the brothers as a fair addition, which does bring a fresh perspective to the group despite not featuring Starlo this time. And it was also fun to see other cameos like Birdo as well as Starlo, who does join Princess Peach this time, alongside Team Idol, which were fun enough, but don't really have much to do outside of the segments they're in. But what about the new characters, such as the Extension Corps, which consist of the three members X, Den, and Shun, which is probably by far the most laziest naming scheme I've ever heard in a game. I know that's like one of the dumbest things to complain about in a game, but X, Den, and Shun just sounds a bit lazy to me. And I think they could have made the names a bit more interesting. Like, they could have made Shun like VGA or something like that, because he represents a VGA cable, or 10 could have been Jack, because he's a headphone jack. Jack and VGA for 10 and Shun wouldn't have been bad names. But outside of the naming scheme, they were fun characters, but I honestly don't feel like they function properly as villains due to their lack of motivation like Forful. Zocket, who is the main antagonist of the game, does function as a villain, but isn't an impactful villain on the likes of Forful or Cackletta from Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story respectively. And now we jump to the elephant in the room, Reclusa. Yeah, I have no other thoughts on this character, since he was a villain introduced too late into the game after Zocket's defeat, meaning we don't get an awful lot of time with the character, and the final hours of the game being poorly paced are mainly to do with this character, who could have been the villain for a future Mario and Luigi game, but no, Reclusa had to be slipped in there as a last minute villain, like Venom in Spider-Man 3, which released in 2007. Other than that, if I had to rank the three villains of Brothership, being Zocket, the Extension Corps, and Reclusa, I'd probably rank Reclusa last. Even if the final battle was decent, Reclusa as a character just sucks. Additionally, the game had a whole chunk of NPCs I couldn't really care about due to the lack of depth in each one, since they felt more like filler than characters that actually have a function in the story. Not to mention that there are mandatory side plots featuring these characters, which many of them I couldn't really get into. Apart from the wedding side plot with Bernadette and Chillian, which was sweet, but these side plots just didn't do enough to actually make me care about these NPC characters, apart from Bernadette and Chilean. The core cast does deliver. I just feel like the supporting characters and villains being fleshed out a bit more, like in Bowser's Inside Story with Fawful, could have made them more enjoyable in-game. And finally, for the story, the theme of community and brotherhood within the plot of Mario and Luigi Brothership is one of the strongest aspects in the story. The history of Concordia and its integration into the plot does add layers to the game's world building, while making the setting of the story feel more lively. The game does a great job at showing the bond of Mario and Luigi, which does stay true to who they are as characters. However, the story does have a lot of issues related to the pacing, since Mario and Luigi Brothership took me 36 hours in total to beat, unlike the average of 22 from Bowser's Inside Story. The opening of the game feels like it drags on longer than it needs to, and the final act feels like it overstays its welcome because of the battle against the Extension Corps and Zocket, which did make the final act feel like it was dragged on for too long. And what doesn't help is that Reclusa made the pacing of the final act even worse by making Mario and Luigi go around the islands in Concordia to get the bonds from the NPCs that Mario and Luigi have met throughout their journey, which I feel like does take a bit too long to gather them all. And not to mention that every island in the game does have mandatory side plots that can't be skipped, especially since they don't help with the pacing because they don't add anything to the story, like at all. Like they're just putting like a lot of stuff in there that doesn't typically matter, which is a huge problem with the game. Making them optional side quests to come back to later wouldn't have been a problem, but as it is, the pacing is all over the place. And there is a lot I would change about the story, such as cutting out most of the side plots entirely or making them optional since they had nothing to do with the story, and either removing Reclusa from the game entirely or saving Reclusa for a future game, because Reclusa is the character I blame for how poorly paced Brothership as a game was, especially the final act. And not to mention, I don't mind games being like lengthy, like 100 hours, but one thing you need to bear in mind with the runtime in a game is how the time is used. Like Persona 5 Royal was 100 hours peak. Mario and Luigi Brothership, on the other hand, was just full of unnecessary side plots and acts that felt like they dragged on for too long, which did not justify the 36-hour length properly. Mario and Luigi Brothership shows that there is potential in the series even without Alpha Dream around to develop it. The combat system does bring back nostalgic elements such as the bros attacks with the introduction of battle plugs, which add strategy to the combat. However, not all the changes are for the better, since I do think the control decisions are questionable in comparison to past games. Visually, Brothership does deliver with its cel-shaded art style, as well as the bros attacks, and the frame rate issues are a huge reminder that the Switch is on its last legs, and that it's time to transition to the Nintendo Switch 2. The story and characters, while they do explore the themes of brotherhood and community, the underdeveloped villains do have a slight effect on the overall experience of the story. And Mario and Luigi Brothership was not a bad game by any means, since I still think it's better than Dream Team and Paper Jam Brothers, but I just don't think it reaches the heights of Superstar Saga, Partners in Time, or Bowser's Inside Story. And that is why I give Mario and Luigi Brothership the Play Then Sell perk, with no accolade at all. And overall, I give Mario and Luigi Brothership a 7 out of 10. I tried my hardest not to be biased with Mario and Luigi Brothership, only because the game does have a lot of elements that I like, but I do feel like the game has its flaws. So in general, Mario and Luigi Brothership is an acceptable installment to the Mario and Luigi series, even if it's not up there with Bowser's Inside Story, nor was it the masterpiece I was hoping for. I definitely think it is the weakest of the 12-month Mario RPG streak, consisting of the remakes of both Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, with Brothership being the only of the three not to earn certified gold. I just think Brothership needed one extra year of development to adjust the pacing, character depth, and the overall structure of the game. I wouldn't have minded this game being pushed back to the Nintendo Switch 2, because I still think there is a lot that could be addressed with Brothership, and for future installments, if we end up getting them, of course, there is a lot that the development team can learn from Brothership. But still, if you are a Mario and Luigi fan, I still recommend checking out the game at least once. So guys, what did you think of my review of Mario and Luigi Brothership? Next on BB8's reviews is hopefully Call of Duty Black Ops 6. And as I'm recording this, my copies of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD and Super Mario Party Jamboree are due to arrive, so hopefully their reviews will come in February. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and turn your notification bell on so you don't miss another review video like this one in the future. And I will see you all in a future video. BB8 out.